My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back after that special AMA session with Daron Nefsey, and boy do I have to say, at least she answered about half of our questions. And when I say our, I mean that she didn't necessarily reply to any of my questions, but instead questions quite similar to mine, so I guess I'll count them instead. Now, I can't really blame Daron. She began her AMA session almost 20 minutes before its original scheduling, and still by that time, the questions were unlimited. So let me just rip the band-aid off. No, she didn't mention a potential season 5 or movie finale. Instead, it sounds like everything we saw was how it was supposed to end. Whenever asked about the criticism behind the finale, she says that they did the best job that they could do, and even mentions how she was lucky to get a season 4 and expected it to be the final one. In summary, her goal was to create an ending where things were resolved, but yet the fans would still have questions to play around with for the sake of lore. However, she did add in the fourth answer responding to whether or not she'll be closing the story anytime soon by saying, not at this time. I guess one last thin strand of hope would be to mention how when asked about the petition for a season 5, she says, "I think it's great. I hope someone pays attention." Is Daron throwing shade at Disney? Maybe so. Alright, now let's get on with the fun facts and certain mysteries finally solved, and certain theories debunked for good. So now, about Toffee. Apparently he was simply an extraordinary historian who studied the butterfly family and their usage of magic. And this is supposed to be the explanation for how he knew about the first spell Moontot Star. But hey, we don't exactly know who he got that piece of info from. I mean, I really doubt it was inside of some historian book. And maybe it wasn't even as simple as that. Perhaps he knew about the magic archives, for example. I mean, it literally writes down everything that happens in real time. Now, as for his ability to control magic, however, makes perfect sense. Cause unlike Marco within the finale, Toffee trained his future battle through research and used his knowledge for bad intentions. As for the skulls he was wearing as armor within the episode Moon the Undaunted, they were indeed revealed to be actual skulls of the butterfly family members of the royal court. And now about that theory I made about him potentially being on Glossaryck's side of things to team up and destroy magic together with. As undeniably mind-boggling that twist would have been, no. It was untrue, and the show is unfortunately more disappointing than even I anticipated it to be. And before any of you rage, please just let me explain myself. I mean, I want you to think about just how genius that would have been. Because now just knowing this makes the moment when Star blasts Toffee in the face, and his last words consisting of cryptic warnings about him having plans that they aren't aware of, even more anticlimactic. Because now there's no lore, and Toffee was even less of a mastermind than what we all wanted to believe him to be. What kind of a villain walks away like this and doesn't have a backup plan, people? Now, a major question you all wanted answered was, where is Seth in the equation? Daron says that he's been dead for a long time, and I'm responding to that by saying, define long time, please. I'm only guessing that she means about 3 decades, cause Seth is clearly alive and mentioned right before Comet's tragic death, inviting him to a banquet. But besides that, I guess. Anyways, we need to talk about the Blood Moon. It was clearly a rushed and overhyped element within the series. I don't care what anyone says. Much like Daron's response to how Alphonse was able to speak to Marco through a painting. Guess what her answer was? Magic. AKA, I don't know, but saying magic is a freaking explanation for everything. It took 4 seasons for us to be subjected to one of the most dragged out episodes, being given unknowingly simplistic results for as to why it existed in the first place, and being far too predictable. Also, she says that the Blood Moon was both a curse and a blessing, so that at least confirms something. Plus, the man is confirmed to be Alphonse, so that is indeed Eclipse's father. Also, I just need to flat out apologize all those videos I've been making about the fact that Alphonse in the painting was inside of the Diaz's house. I got that completely wrong. In all reality, Alphonse the Sailor's painting was actually hung up inside of Star's part of the room. Now, if you're wondering if Selena has any connection with Marco or not due to their cheeks both consisting of moon crescents instead of Marco having nacho marks, for example, that question sadly never got answered. One other question that did get answered was about the ending of what dimensions were collided together. As it turns out, it truly was just strictly between Earth and Muni that got together. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, this meme is indeed relevant. Alright, I'm sorry guys, I'm sorry for being so heated after this AMA session. I'm so disappointed. A tiny speculation that was constantly brought up throughout the episodes was whether or not the monster arm would return. Now surprisingly, Daron does explain the fact that she really did have intentions on bringing it back and it taking over Marco. However, that didn't really quite fit inside of any of the episodes. However, in my opinion, I agree to disagree. I mean, they could have easily replaced the naysayer with the return of the monster arm, with Marco struggling with his inner demons following the episode page turner. An episode where he is literally being held up by the dark forces from inside of the Book of Spells after flipping to Eclipse's forbidden chapter. But hey, that's just a theory. And now, in speaking of theories besides mine that completely failed, there was a theory that Marco Diaz achieving his GED instead of finishing high school was a reference to an experience of someone in real life, which ended up to be true. When Daron was younger, she decided to take her GED test so that way high school was not something that she had to finish, since her school was filled with people who didn't exactly get along with her. Plus, just as many people had guessed, there were some episodes that were eventually scrapped, including an episode about Mr. Diaz's job, which would have been quite interesting in my opinion. And then another episode about Miss Skolnick dating some orange monster that grunts a lot, who I think is this guy or possibly even someone we haven't seen yet. But going back to the serious questions, we have the question about how Meteora somehow managed to survive Eclipse's blast back in season 3's finale, which by the way was a fantastic question that I admittedly forgot all about, so thank you the Jar of Maize for asking this question. It's an awesome question. The Black Velvet Inferno spell was indeed meant to stabilize Meteora and later on follow with her degrading back into an infant, but that only would have worked if the spell was done perfectly, which thankfully it was in the end. This explains as to why we see Eclipse in shock almost. This wasn't an act, but instead she honestly believed that Meteora at first was gone, and once revealed that her spell was done properly, she weeps tears of joy. Wow, saying that out loud makes you think. This season finale was better than the entire series finale. And while we're on the subject of spellcasting, did you know that Warnicorns are unicorns that practically survive off of the blood of its enemies? Well, that makes Skywin a bit more cryptic, eh? Sadly, that's all of the significant questions that were actually answered. If you want to find out all of what she answered, I should have a link to her postings down below. Now, as like I said in the beginning of this video, she didn't necessarily answer all of them, so here's a list of all the questions that she clearly avoided or didn't see. Who knows? What did the unicorn from inside of Star's wand in season 1 finale say to Star that made her tear up? What were the cosmic secrets that Selena the Shy had never told? Were they secrets of the butterfly heritage? What was the name of Muni's first queen, and how was she? Now, after spouting these last remaining questions out, I have to admit that maybe there was more answered than I thought. However, I'm sorry to say this, but I really don't believe in what Daron had said about us the fans, saying that we only reacted this way because we simply wanted more of the show. Instead, it was clearly because the story was told far too simple, while we were given only great cliffhangers, rather than both great cliffhangers and great resolutions. Now obviously fans did want more, but there's a reason why an incredible amount of people were complaining more over the Star vs. finale versus the Gravity Falls one. Gravity Falls left us with an awesome special that felt like a movie. The tensions were high, characters actually fought to the death. It was a tearjerker to this day and had the perfect ending. See you next summer. And though we wanted a Gravity Falls movie, there is a huge difference of why we wanted a movie from them versus a movie from Star vs. Questions in Gravity Falls all around were being answered left and right, and each episode was much more plot driven rather than silly nonsense about whether or not Star likes Marco and vice versa. Plus, 4 seasons! Gravity Falls had 2, and that felt much more complete with mystery solved and lore well deserved. It's called criticism, and Star vs. my friend had every opportunity in the world to be much greater. The rise of Meteora is a perfect example. Seriously, how on earth did we go from Meteora the giant magic sucking demon to Mina, the one who got defeated by Meteora, the monster racist psychopath? And another thing, not rushed? Huh? You mean it takes Star 1 episode to all of a sudden hate magic because of her incredibly now no longer the wiser mother, Moon? Yeah, sure.
But magic's what brought us together.
Alright, now I gotta calm down a second time. Daron Nefsi, as of right now, has decided to take a break for the remainder of the time, and can possibly come out with a future cartoon in the meantime afterwards. Also, one last detail, she mentions how she enjoys hiking and bicycling. I bet most of you caught on before I could even mention it, but yeah, That makes Marco's interest in Season 2 a lot of sense. But with all that being said, I'm not gonna end the video here. I mean, I bet a ton of you may be disappointed just as I was that day. And so I collected a bunch of Star vs. memes that I'm sure will cheer all of you up. Peace.